Hey, thank you all so much for joining another episode of Celeste the Therapist Podcast. My name is Celeste. I'm a therapist from Boston. If you've never been into my podcast before, thank you for giving me a try. What I do on this podcast is I talk about things that we go through and I help you think about ways that you can work on challenging these thoughts and these things that we go through. If you are a longtime listener, thank you for being here. If you're new here, there are tons of episodes that you can find where I've talked to guests over the years. I've been podcasting since 2018, July 2nd to be exact. I'm coming up on another anniversary, which is so exciting. And now I've changed the platform to the short episodes. I always encourage you to grab a notebook, grab a pen, kind of look at these episodes as learning tools that you can take what you can, leave what you don't, what you can't utilize, but try to look at this as one of the resources that you can use to work on your healing journey. So my platform is for people that want to work on shifting the way they think. I offer a very holistic way of doing things, and I'm also really big on starting where you are and using what you have. I think that's something that's so important to me. And my platform changed last year because I opened a wellness center located in Stoughton, Massachusetts. So if you are in the area, check us out, stwyt.com, where you can find it. Today on the episode, and if you are listening to me on audio, you can always find these episodes on the YouTube platform. The reason why it's important to me to put it on YouTube is because I offer visuals. One thing about me is I'm a very visual learner, so it's easier for me to follow along when I'm able to look at it. So definitely check me out on YouTube. You can search Celeste the Therapist to find it. Today we're talking about understanding how to turn like pain into purpose. I've been journaling lately in the mornings, and I have been listening to motivational videos, and so uh, I look at that as my medicine. I'm working on a project again, and anytime I'm starting something new, what happens is like I feel like a little anxious, a little overwhelmed. So then I start utilizing some of the things that have helped me get grounded. Being grounded is important when you're going through transition, when you're going through a lot of changes. Uh, Trying to allow yourself to get into the moment could be so powerful because what's happening is your mind is trying to go into the future when it's like, nope, I need to get back into the now. So, one of the things that we're going to talk about today is reframing your life from pain to purpose. I know a lot of times people have dealt with a lot of things over the years, right? And unfortunately, what tends to happen is that your lens on life will look like what you've been through. And what do I mean by that is that if things haven't gone well, if you've watched your caregiver, the person that raised you, deal with things a certain way, because you don't have a different outlook, sometimes you can allow your mind to only cycle out all of the hard things that have happened. And so the idea of a future that looks positive, that looks freeing, that looks peaceful, um, doesn't tend to exist, right? When you allow your pain to dictate things. So we're going to talk about understanding the impact of your past, the cost of living in your past, like how it affects you, the power of reframing. I'm all about reframing. My practice is called shifting the way you think, because if you're shifting the way you think, you're actually reframing things, and then how we can set goals. So if you're new here, I'm very concise, I'm very to the point, and I use analogies. They really help you understand things better. So I really hope that you really enjoy today's episode. Okay, so let's get just jump right into this episode. So, the power of reframing your life from pain into purpose. So, understanding the impact of your past. So, if you're not aware, your past experiences significantly shape your thoughts and your behavior by influencing perceptions, expectations, and learning from both success and failure. They can also lead to the development of cognitive bias beliefs and attitudes, as well as influence our emotional reactions and decision making styles. And I'm going to leave this up for people that are watching this on YouTube. What this is essentially saying is that the things in your past can influence the way you see things, right? So not just with failure, because I just talked about failure as I opened it up, right? Where we may have seen things not go well for people in our lives, things may not have gone well, and so the idea of like life just is gonna suck. is an idea that people have, but also success, right? I always tell people that struggle with consistency, I'll say, like, start making up your bed in the morning, right? And then we'll move from there. Making up your bed takes 2 seconds first thing in the morning. And people will come to me and be like, oh my gosh, Celeste, like I made up my bed, right? I do that because now they're gaining confidence in their ability to do things. A lot of times we think we need this grand thing to help. We're waiting for this grand thing to happen before change happens. Sometimes it literally starts with making up your bed. Sometimes it starts with allowing yourself 5 minutes to take deep breaths, right? Like intentional deep breaths to start the process of grounding, right? The little things that you do matter, right? And so those experiences that you've had, they can shape the way that you think about life. And then the development of cognitive biases. Well, if it didn't go right before, it's never going to be right. And then your emotional reactions and decision making style, right? A lot of times we are led by our emotions and we don't really understand how that happens, right? A lot of times, some of the things that we're feeling, whether it's fear, whether it's anxiety, whether it's depression, like a lot of the things that we're feeling, unfortunately, we find ourselves making decisions based off of our feeling. So one of the things, I tell people when they say, like, I don't like the fact that I feel sad, and there's no reason for it, right? People will say that. And I'll say, you don't have to have a reason in front of you to feel to identify like that you're feeling sad. And it's important to note that your feelings are valid. The sadness that you feel, whether or not you can identify where it's coming from, it's really important to honor that emotion. Now, making a decision off of that emotion, that's where the issue come into play, right? It's really important. We're going to honor our emotions, right? If my children get upset because they got in trouble, I'm not mad at them for being upset. You hear parents, or you maybe have said it, or it's been said to you, where it's like, what are you upset for? Like, you know what you did. Like, yeah, I know what I did, but it's not okay for me to be upset. Like, it's okay to feel upset, but a lot of us haven't been allowed to feel our feelings. And so, as adults, when we find ourselves feeling a certain way, we struggle with the fact that we feel that way instead of honoring what we are feeling. Understanding the impact of your past is crucial when it comes to looking at how you are looking at life in the present and for the future. When you're struggling with dwelling on the past, you can face difficulties like guilt, regret, and even trauma related issues. These can lead to emotional distress, mental health challenges, and difficulties in present day relationship and activities. Again, dwelling on the past brings up all of these emotions. And a lot of times we're ruminating on things that we cannot change. Anytime I'm working with people and we're talking about the past, and I'll say, well, what part of that do you have control over presently? Nothing, right? Easier said than done. An example, and I've used this, I've said this before on the podcast, but if you're watching a movie and there's a scary scene that comes up, you'll find yourself, you may jump and you will, oh my gosh, that was so scary. Your system starts to feel that fear. But then when the movie's over, guess what's happening? You're going back to baseline, right? You're not ruminating over that scene because you know it was a movie. We've experienced things in real life where it's happened, right? And then our system goes into whatever it goes to during that traumatic event, during that moment. Unfortunately, we have not gone back to baseline. Unfortunately, because we're not processing what's happening, our system is constantly like, oh my gosh, it's happening again. When the feeling comes into play, whether it's isolation, whether it's abandonment, when that feeling comes into play, you'll find your system struggling with the rumination of the thoughts because you haven't processed it. When I have my first session with people, one of the important things that is important for me to do is that we go over their history. The reason why it's important for me to go over their history is because I want to help them make the connections to what is happening in the present. And if we made time to pause and reflect, we can start to see how some things can be related, right? If you got to make time to pause and reflect, and I do understand making time Pausing and reflecting for some people can feel very scary. Being in the moment for so many people has been scary because you may be saying, like, well, why is it scary for me to be in the moment? The reason why being in the moment can feel scary in today is because there's been moments in your past that being in the moment was really hard. And our mind does an amazing job at being able to escape, being able to go somewhere else. And that works as children, that works for the traumatic event. But in the present day, it doesn't work for us all the time. It creates a lot of situations where we are not present, where we're not experiencing joy, right? And so, my goal for you is to help you understand that, right? So, when we can have a grapple on our past, right? We got to face it. If we don't face our past will continue to be the lens in which we look at life under. It's going to be very hard to change life's present and future if we are trying to run from the past. And there's so many different ways that we'll find ourselves running from the past. So really be mindful when you're doing that. Now, what is the cost of living in the past, right? Because it comes with a cost. Being stuck in the past can significantly impact emotional and mental health well being, leading to various negative consequences. So, this can be rumination, right? Nostalgic depression. So, thinking about all those like hard things that's happened in the past, or even unresolved trauma. It can hinder personal growth, distort your perspective, and contribute to mental health conditions like anxiety and depression. A lot of times I say, like, and so I'm in America for people that are listening in other places. I feel like we are one of the most anxious and depressed nations. We have so many things at our fingertips that are available to us, like resources, but the anxiety and the depression is so debilitating. And my thoughts on that, right? Why is it so prevalent? Because we're trying to fill our time with so many things. We're distracted by so many things. In this country, once you if you come from another country where they don't do a lot of advertisement, you come here, you start to feel bombarded with advertisement. I remember speaking to somebody, I can't remember what country they went to, but they said they remember when they came back, they were so overwhelmed by all the billboards, by all the advertisements. They didn't realize like how heavy it was here because they had been somewhere else for a while, and then it hit them at too much how much advertisement is done. Think about your algorithm on your feed. If you look at something for more than 5 or 6 seconds, that thing is coming back in your feed. A lot of times, the cravings that you have, not just for food, but for other things, you're trying to figure out why. A lot of it's because of what you're watching, right? What you're listening to. A lot of the ways that we're operating in life, right, where we're not like identifying what we're feeling, we're not like paying attention to how we're affected by things. Instead, we're just on the go. Instead, we're just trying to like make status, make money, survive, right? Party, not want to miss anything. And we're just going, going, going like robots when there are ways that we're affected by things that we're not paying attention to. So being mindful of if you are finding yourself constantly stuck in the past, it comes with the price. It comes with the price. Yes, trying to get more present can be hard, but being present, paying attention to what is happening can help you start to see the direction in life that you're trying to go. Now, let's talk about the power of reframing. Because reframing is something that is so important to do. Because, like, for instance, let me just try to think of an example real quick. So, let's say that like the glass half full, right? So, if there's a glass, it's half full, it's half empty, and it's half full, right? Which perspective sounds better? Me saying that the glass is half full feels better because I feel like I'm closer to it being full if I'm trying to fill it up. Let's just say it's money. But if I say my glass is half empty, it sounds a little bit more negative, like, dang, it's empty, like using the language that you use, but both are true, right? So, reframing or cognitive reframing is a technique that involves changing the way you perceive and interpret situations, experiences, and even your own thoughts. It's about shifting your mindset to view a situation from a different perspective, often leading to a more helpful or positive outlook. Essentially, it's about understanding that the meaning we assign to our experiences is not inherent, but rather a product of our own interpretation. Somebody, you can get into a car accident with somebody else. That other person may walk away and they be like, "Oh, that was close. Like, I'm glad I'm good," and walk away. You could find yourself struggling with what just happened and feeling a different kind of impact for one reason or the other. Maybe you've been in an accident before, maybe it brought up some other things, or maybe that's just how you have responded to it, right? So, really understanding the ways in which you are interpreting situations and thinking about how you can reframe it. I'm going to give you a very concrete example on what this looks like. Um, and I want to be clear, reframing, when I say reframing, it doesn't mean I'm saying pretend like things didn't happen, right? I spent so many years thinking that life was so hard. Yes, life is hard. But thinking that there was no way for me to have peace because of all the things that have happened over the years. And I have found myself being able to really not allow that pain of the past to take over my present by reminding myself, like, it's okay. Like, I can't change the past. Like, the words that I started to say to myself matter. And when I'm working with people and the words that they say when they're so negative, I'm like saying, "Hey, did you hear what you just said?" I'm constantly reminding people that there are power in words and the way that you're framing things. So I really want you to be mindful of that. But on this next slide, let's look at ways that you can reframe it. I'm giving you a concrete example. So imagine you lost your job. Initially, you might interpret this as a failure, leading to feelings of anxiety and insecurity. However, reframing this experience could involve seeing it as an opportunity to explore new career paths, pursue further education, or start a business you've always dreamed of. You might also consider the job loss as a chance for a fresh beginning. This literally happened to me. And if you've been listening to this podcast for a long time, you already know. And 2000 in 2014 or 13. In 2013, I got demoted from my job. I was supervising case managers. I had worked at this facility for a while and I got demoted. And I remember when I got demoted and had a pay cut and they changed my hours, I was really upset because I was doing a great job. But, over the years, I've learned that my advocacy and who I am, it didn't work in certain spaces. And it worked out for me. So I got demoted, right? I could have been like, "Oh my gosh, this sucks," which I said, "This sucked." I could have stayed in that. I could have stayed bitter. I could have spent years talking about, "I can't believe they demoted me. Like, who do they think they are?" I could have stayed there, but no, I reframed it. And I said to myself, "Oh, I'm disposable, right? Like, they have every right. I'm an employee at will. They can let me go. They can demote me. They could do whatever they want to me. Um, but what do I have power over? Right?" And at the time, I had my master's and I didn't even go for my licensure. I wasn't thinking about being an entrepreneur. Never once did that cross my mind. Never once. Because I was just going to grow with the company, retire, get a little gold watch or something. So that demotion, instead of me wallowing in like, this isn't fair, I said it wasn't fair. So it's not about not naming it. It wasn't fair, but what can I do with this opportunity? What did I do? I decided I was going to go for my license. I went for my license, went to another job, made $20,000 more than what I was making at the time just by going for my license. Something I never thought about doing because I was felt so satisfied in the role that I was in, right? So I want you to use this example. Think about the things that maybe you have gone through and asking yourself, what is the beauty in the struggle? What can I pull out of that situation? How can I change my outlook on the way that I'm framing things? I spent so many years living in pain where it felt debilitating. And usually that pain would show up at night, right? Why did it show up at night? Because there was no distractions. I wasn't going to school, studying, partying. Like, those were my outlooks that I had utilized to escape, right? Like I said, we can escape in different ways. People are familiar with drugs and alcohol, but there's also food. There's also work. There's also degrees, getting multiple degrees, leaving the house, going to multiple events. There's so many ways that we can find ourselves escaping. And once I decided that I wasn't gonna like run anymore from this and actually start to face it head on, very challenging, very hard, it allowed me to see the autonomy that I had over my life. It allowed me to see the choices that I was able to make, right? Like, so my reframe came so naturally. The more that I started to look at my power, the more I started to work on reframing and taking control of my life and starting to see my purpose. I was somewhat living out my purpose in the career path that I was choosing, but I was just going through the motions. I wasn't really involved consciously. I was just doing the part, feeling unsatisfied. I'm sure some people that are listening now understands what that feels like. And so if you want to take control of your life, not allow your pain to take over your life, you got to face what is, right? Face what is happening or what has happened and work on reminding yourself that I can never change the past. Sometimes there are things that you have done. Forget the fact that things have been done to you. Sometimes there are things that you have done. Forgiving yourself is huge, right? It's something that I talk about often. Not an easy task to do, but an important task to do. Because we only have one life, right? We only have one life. And in order for us to work on enjoying life, creating peace in life, we got to be in the moment. If we're dwelling on the past, or worried about the future, we're not in the moment. And when you're not in the moment, there's no way you can have peace. Last thing we're going to talk about really quick is setting purposeful goals. And so if you can see this pie graph, and if you can't, if you're not on YouTube, I would encourage you to Google wellness wheel, and you will see these different dimensions on the wheel. There's social wellness, emotional wellness, spiritual wellness, and spiritual is not religion. So before you think like, oh, I'm not religious, neither am I. I'm very spiritual. Um, Intellectual wellness, physical wellness, environmental wellness, financial wellness, and occupational wellness. So these are different areas of our lives, right? Because how can I say that I want to be in the present and work on my future if I don't know what my goals are? Right? How can I change my pain into purpose if I'm not even clear on what my goals are? This is a great way to work on identifying what your goals look like. If you go to celestetherapist.com, I actually have a short webinar where I go through these dimensions and help you think about what these areas look like. And what I when I go through this with people is I'll tell them to think between the numbers of 1 and 10, 1 being very bad, not doing well in that area, and 10 being I'm doing amazing. Go through this wheel and start to number it. What am I doing well at? You'll be surprised. Some areas you might find yourself thinking like, okay, I got it together in this area. Some areas it might be kind of low, but what that allows you to do is have a framework and a baseline on where you are instead of just making like, oh, I don't like my job. Oh, I don't feel like I'm really in tune with myself, right? Oh, I'm not really like moving my body or eating well, like just saying it. But what are you going to do about it, right? And this will allow you to actually look at where you are now currently in life in these areas and help you work on coming up with the goal for each area, right? So if you type in wellness wheel, you'll find the wellness wheel with the different categories. And if you want to see a visual on it now, you just go to YouTube. I have the visual up. And I got this specific wheel from Headspace. So if you type in wellness wheel Headspace, you'll find the specific wheel that I have up with the different categories. Um, I hope that was helpful. I hope that makes sense when it comes to thinking about like the things you've gone through and thinking about how do I not allow it to take over my life, right? We got to understand what happened to you may not have been your fault, but your healing is always going to be your responsibility, right? I'll say that again. What happened to you may not have been your fault, but your healing is your responsibility. A lot of times we want somebody to pay for what's happened. My friend Sean Marshall had this amazing example where he talked about being hit by a limo. And he said, if I, if the limo driver happened to stop for him, but he said, if the limo driver didn't stop for me, right? And the ambulance driver came, right? Somebody called the ambulance and came. And the ambulance was like, all right, come on, let's get in the ambulance. And then we say, nah, I can't get in the ambulance because the limo driver is the one who did it. He needs to take me to the ambulance. Nobody would ever do that. We would never say, I'm gonna sit here and wait for the ambulance driver to come back because of what he did. Right? It's his fault. He needs to bring me to the hospital. In some cases, the in his case, the limo driver stopped. There could be a case the limo driver didn't stop, right? And when you think about the things you struggle with, the things you've been holding on to, and the things that nobody has ever acknowledged or said sorry about, I want you to think about that analogy with the limo driver. I want you to ask yourself, am I still waiting for the limo driver to pick me up, or do I need to just go in the ambulance and start working on what I need to heal? Because those people are going on with their lives. Who knows what they got going on? A lot of times, people will say, but they seem happy or they're doing this. That's not your business, you know? And if we can reframe it, right? It's easy to frame it in a sense of, but it's not fair because it isn't fair. That's always going to be true. It's not fair. It sucks. But what is also true is that if you want to get to where you need to go, your healing is your responsibility. I hope that was helpful. I hope that makes sense. If you are in the Stoughton area, I just want to share. I do have regular classes that are taking place. We have a mindful yin class the last Friday of every month. We have a restorative yoga. We have a rest and recharge. I don't have the clip up here for this, but we also are going to have a gentle flow starting next month in June. June 14th, a gentle trauma informed yoga session. If you know me, or if you've been following me, I'm very big into holistic healing. I love talk therapy. I think it's great, but a lot of times we have so much stored in our body and we're not even aware of it. So definitely like check out the classes if you're in the area. Really good space to help you decompress, to help you relax, to work on your healing process. And again, if you want to follow me, you can follow. Oh, I also have two books. One is a guided journal called 365 Days of Intentional Living. And I also have a book called Relationship Goals. It's a guide to a healthy relationship. If you go to stwyt.com, you can find those two books. And then if you want to follow me, I'm on every social media site by searching Celeste the Therapist. And my website for my wellness center is stwyt.com. That's stwyt.com. If anything I ever say resonates for you, understand you have the power to create change, but you have to have faith to believe in yourself. And I always tell people, when you have faith, when you start believing in yourself, man, nobody can take that away from you. Validate yourself, validate your feelings, but don't make decisions off of those feelings. That's important. Until next time, beautiful people, I will talk to you later.